Hello, I'm Sinead and welcome. Today I will be doing a tutorial on the 12th scale gown. This was actually designed for the Pookie Pookie, even though the pattern has the Itty Britty by Nikki Britt. The pattern actually fits a lot of different dolls. And in the pattern, you'll see pictures of all the dolls that, well, not all the dolls, but a lot of the dolls I have wearing it. And if there are, just to put out there, if there are any of my other patterns that you want me to do a video on, let me know and I'll do that. So to begin with, you do not need to print anything but the last page, which is the pattern page. This is the pattern page. And I say you don't need to, but that's really depends on your circumstances. If you have access to be able to look at the instructions on the computer, as you can see, the colored pictures don't print all that well. So looking at it on the computer, your phone, or an iPad or whatever, the pictures are clearer, and it's easier to see what I'm indicating the instructions, what the instructions are indicating. So you're gonna cut this out, and then you'll want to place it on a piece of jersey. The jersey direction, I don't know if you can see this here, I hope you can. The jersey has a directional that looks like knitting, like if you take this knit and you see the direction is of the knit looks like stripes this way. If you look on the fabric and you give it a little tug, you can see those stripes, and they are going up and down this way on here. So I line up the front of the gown. Let me get that up there. The front of the gown here. You want to line that up as close as possible to the line on the jersey. And I want to note that most jersey has a slight slant to it. So the fabric will be square this way, but the jersey knit will be kind of going at an angle. So it makes it easier for me to put, for the sewing, to put this where the lines pretty much go in a direction with the front of the gown. These will be a little more stretchy on the edges because they are on a bias. And you need to be aware of that. Don't pull on them excessively when you're sewing. But anyway, for the cutting out for accuracy on miniature set sewing, it's helpful to get your size the same by using one of two methods. Either use a double stick tape and tape down your pattern, and then you can cut down along the edges right up against this edge. Or trace around with a heat erasable pen, trace around this, and then cut inside that traced line. If you pin your pattern to the fabric, there is a bump, and it will actually come out slightly bigger. It won't be the same size. So it's not imperative, especially on this design, but sometimes the fit will come out too big if you use pins to pin your pattern in place and cut it out. And that's just something I've discovered with sewing the miniatures. You'll be affected by your choice of fabric. I only use natural fabrics, and I include rayon in that list. They don't act the same as the synthetics, and I don't have a lot of experience because I can't handle synthetics. They don't respond exactly the same. So you may have to experiment with how they behave. And I have found that old cotton jersey will have less return in its stretch. And so you have to handle it gently, or it's gonna like blossom and grow as you work with it, and you'll end up again with a bigger outfit. Handling it delicately, and when they get old, they just kind of the cotton just kind of relaxes and loses its return. So that's something to be aware of. When I say old, mine was like 30 years old. So it's significant, but definitely something you could end up with buying vintage fabrics. I don't know if the polyesters do that. Again, that's outside my experience. So think about that when you're handling it. If it you stretch it out and it kind of has a very slow return, know that that'll affect the fit. Also, this particular cotton doesn't have much stretch at all. It'll work for this pattern, but if I were making the these pants here, need a little more stretch than that. They work better if there's a better stretch and return. And I think these are cotton, but it has a small percentage of elastic. I don't remember which type of elastic in the weave, but that works better for the things like the pants. So I'm gonna get that cut out. Once you've got it cut out, everything, the jersey's gonna want to curl all over the place, but this is again, the right side. If you can see the knit there, you're gonna turn it over and hem up the collar edge. I usually like to get started by knotting my thread into the edge rather than trying to keep knots from pulling through, because they will every single time. I just knot it into the fabric. And then it helps to just turn the whole garment so that you can get started there. This is approximately 2, maybe 2.5 millimeters. And then stitch it. Gonna say again that if this is gonna show from the outside, so you'll either need to keep an eye on the stitches or you'll need to do it from the outside, which adds a little challenge to it. But anyway, you're going to hem just around that opening, and that's your first step. I think I forgot to mention that I was using a back stitch on this. You could just use a hem stitch, and then stitching it from the back side would be less of an issue because you would only end up with tiny little single stitches on this side. And I forget sometimes. I just get started doing it one way. And as you can see maybe here, my hem allowance as I turned it around the front edge got narrower, and my stitches got smaller, but that's okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is hem your sleeves. And I think instead of using a back stitch, I'm going to just use a hem stitch on this. But you do what you want to do and hem both sleeves. Now that we have our sleeves hemmed, we are going to take the back and fold it over to the front, line up the underarm of the sleeve and down the side, and you will stitch this part right here using a back stitch, and then repeat on the other side. So in stitching these side seams, I made a mistake, so I thought I should mention it. I accidentally stitched it up the first time with 3mm seam allowances, which that is not what's on this pattern. This pattern calls for a 2mm seam allowance. So I had to take that out and redo it because I just made that mistake. After you've got your side seam stitched up, you are going to want to clip in, being careful not to hit the seam, but just give it a tiny little clip so that it doesn't pull when it's turned right side out. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open it out and we are going to hem. And when I hem the bottom, I do try to open the seams so that it's not so bulky as you go across there. And let's see, I think it's a 4mm hem. That's what it looks like. See, and you can just pick up your pattern piece and use it as like a gauge. But yeah, just hem up the bottom now. Once you have your hem sewn, it's time to hem the back edges of the opening to the gown. So you'll just fold those over the 4 or so millimeters that are indicated on the pattern piece and stitch that up next on both sides. Don't forget to do both sides. Okay, once you have these edges hemmed up, it's time to turn it right side out if you haven't already. Sometimes I use a crochet hook to make this easier, bigger, like a 5mm crochet hook stuck down the sleeve, and just hook this and it makes it less fiddly. And pressing open the seams is also something that you can just kind of work it out like so. Lay it down and give it a little bit of a press, and it will make this lay much nicer. Your closures is what is next, and you can do the tiny little 4mm buttons with button loops. I think that is absolutely adorable, but of late, due to time constraints on my sewing time, I have been using a lot of snaps, because not only do I not have a lot of time for enjoying the process here, I have found it so much easier to dress the doll with snap closures. So if you're doing photo shoots and you're going to be taking them in and out of the clothes a lot, then having snaps is easier. Also, Velcro would be easier, but I am not a fan of Velcro. I don't like sewing it, and I don't like using it. But anyway, you're going to put a couple of snaps in here, or buttons or whatever on the back side. Line this up, put the closure on. With this plain color, one of the cool things that this is a blank canvas, and you can add embroidery to it, as I did on the front of the pattern. These stitches here are French knots, and it has little chain stitches, and those are the instructions for how those stitches are done are in the pattern. And just embellish in that way, or you can stitch on a little applique up here on the chest if you want, or anything really. It's a blank canvas. Have fun. Put your little snap on the back and you're good to go. I hope you had fun putting together your little gown, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.